So in this video, we're going to talk about where pathogens can be found, specifically in relation to the cell. So behind me, I've got drawn some epithelial cells, let's say some simple cuboidal epithelial cells. Or for example, right back here, I've got a macrophage that could phagocytose the pathogen. So you'll notice that I've labeled some compartments. I've got N for nucleus, and now we've got the cytoplasm, which is the liquid portion of the cell. Sometimes we refer to that as the cytosol. And so when you're thinking about where is a pathogen found, I want you to start thinking about it in terms of, is it inside the cell, intracellular, or is it outside the cell, extracellular? So recall that outside of the cell, you find substances like fluids. Specifically, there could be interstitial fluid in tissues, that is between cells. You find liquid portion of blood, that's the plasma you could have, and that's outside of a cell. So you could have pathogens found in the lymph uh, fluid, that is fluid outside of a cell. So all of these fluids are referred to as humors, and you often find pathogens located in these fluids, these extracellular fluids, as opposed to being intracellular, where they might be found in the cytosol or cytoplasm. So, where are we going to find pathogens? We're going to find them in the extracellular fluid or interstitial fluid. If you get a cut, for example, and a pathogen, a virus, a bacteria gets into your tissues, the pathogen typically starts out outside of a cell. Now, pathogens get inside cells. So viruses, for example, have to infect our cells, and they enter through a variety of mechanisms. That's more specific to the virus, but once they enter, often they are in the cytoplasm. The viral proteins are in the cytoplasm. Pathogens can also enter cells via uh, the vesicular system. So cells take things in via vesicles. For example, a macrophage would take in a pathogen via phagocytosis, for example, and a pathogen can end up inside a vesicle. Now, is that intracellular? Well, I guess the vesicle's inside the cell, but try to keep track of compartments and where things originated. So, for example, here I've sort of marked off where the liquid portion of the cell is, the cytoplasm or the cytosol. And you'll notice that the bacteria that was engulfed by this macrophage, it's not in the cytosol, it's in a vesicle, right? That vesicle originated from the extracellular or interstitial fluid. So when things are taken in via vesicles, they actually originate from that interstitial fluid. So that actually, the vesicular system and the cytosol contain different substances. And all of this is to say that when we're talking about immune system proteins that interact with pathogens, some of these immune system proteins exist in your fluids. And again, when we're talking about your fluids, right now we're going to be talking about your interstitial fluids, your plasma, the liquid portion of blood, not the cellular portion of blood, so not in the cytoplasm or the cytosol of cells. Or these proteins might be found in your lymph fluid. So when pathogens enter the body and exist in this extracellular region, we're going to encounter immune system proteins that can interact with the pathogens to help recognize and attack the pathogens. So we're going to talk about immune system proteins shortly in other future videos that are either soluble, can be found in the interstitial fluid or blood plasma or lymph. We're also going to talk about immune system proteins that are membrane bound. So they are embedded in plasma membranes of cells, sometimes pointing outward, such as receptors, or sometimes they might be inside of cells. So we might have proteins that are intracellular in the cytosol that can recognize pathogens, or in the vesicular system, also recognizing pathogens. So this is just a video just to introduce you to the concept of where pathogens might be found uh, in the interstitial fluid, the extracellular fluid, or inside the cytosol. And that's going to be important when we're talking about where these immune system proteins are located and where they're recognizing pathogens.